public speaking is a pretty interesting animal. And you have been able to capitalize on taking your message and really branding it with your pedigree as a public speaker. How did you garner the confidence that you've brought to the table when it comes to how you speak? What are some of the game plans that you put together to move from what would be considered a novice speaker to a polished speaker that you are today?
Inspiration, seeing in others what I can see in myself. They showed me like, that's what it looks like. I can do that. I can 100% do that. I couldn't always say that. At this point in life, it's something I learned in baseball. If as a player, as an athlete, I played at the level I saw myself at. Okay. Other people saw me at a different level, but that's not where I saw myself, and that's where I capped. That's where I capped. The one thing that I did do is I worked hard. I would challenge anybody to say that they worked harder than I did. They put in more time and hours than I did, but I didn't work this like I know how to do now.
Yeah.
I only worked the skills of the game. And in the Greg Maddox documentary on the MLB Network, which is fantastic, he says, I think 60% of the game is mental, and I realized I wasn't training 60% of my time on the mental aspect of the game, and that was what made him. There's a conversation between him and Barry Bonds that they're having that they don't know they're having at the same time about each other. That's like, dude, those guys are they're playing a different game than everybody else.
No doubt about it.
Right? And I'm just learning to play a bigger, better, more sophisticated game. And I also have learned too that like when you get in that room that you've been able to get in, dude, you gotta bring it right then. That's your opportunity. You got to be ready. So if I was sitting on the bench and coach said, Hyder, you're up, you got to be ready to seize that moment when the time's there. And because you don't always get as the higher levels you get, there's always somebody else right behind you that wants it, and you're not going to get a second chance.
Yeah. When you have a table setting for opportunity, so when it knocks, it looks like you've been expecting it all your life.
That's right. Well, and dude, like you were waiting on that knock. I watched you wait on it for at least a year. So, and then when you got it, it was just like, but if like it was worth it, wasn't it?
Oh yeah.
Right. And everything's on, as we say, God's time, right? Well, like there's things that are happening right now that I needed or wanted a year ago, a year and a half ago, and they didn't happen. But now that they're happening, it was like, oh yeah, I see why you waited. I see why now's when it's happening. I wasn't ready. I thought I was ready. I actually wasn't ready.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And I think that's one of the hardest things for youth to cope with is that they think that they're ready, and they're maybe ready physically with their ability. But if they are to achieve that level of success, they're not ready mentally to handle it.
Yeah.
And that's when the bad decisions kick in. And we see a lot of that in high school and college sports for sure, and even in professional sports.
100%. And like, again, I wasn't ready. I thought I was ready, but you know what I learned to do is like get on my knees and look up and say, hey man, like what am I missing here? My heart and eyes are open. I'm going to keep them there. I'm not stopping. So like, but I don't know where to go from here. But God won't steer a parked car. It's got to be moving for him to take the wheel.
Yeah.
So just keeping that movement. So for me, it was just like, I look my wife in the eyes and she believes in me. And I'm like, baby, I don't know how this is going to play out. Well, I do know how it's going to play out. We're going to win. This is what winning is going to be. I'm defining that for you. I just don't know exactly how and when we're going to get there yet, but I'm going to keep us going and we're going to get there. So that way, when I do get that opportunity, it's just like, oh yeah, I was made to be here. Right.
Yeah. One of the hardest things about being a champion and having a process that you're following is that you got to know that if you do the championship process, that you're gonna be rewarded. The thing that sucks is we just don't know when you're gonna get it.
How much better are you at what you're doing right now than if you had got it a year prior? Because you look at all you overcame to get there.
Yeah.
You're better now in that room than you would have been a year ago when it was like that would have been, you needed that, right?
Yeah.
But you figured out a way to get there another way, and now you're more prepared, more qualified.
That's exactly right. You're getting the opportunity to coach baseball now too a little bit, and it's you have a variety of talents combining at the same time. One, dad. Two, former professional player. Dad, and like your family's been involved in it forever and a day. So you have all of the past experience that your dad that gave you when he was coaching you. You got all of the experience that you took all the way into professional baseball, and then you have all of this new what would be the word that I'm looking for? All of this new precise understanding of what it is that you want out of yourself and the things that you want to add to your son's life. But now you're doing it with a bunch of other kids.
Mm-hmm.
So you get to have a bigger impact than just being dad.
Yeah.
You get to be coach.
Mm-hmm.
How serious do you take that? And what are some of the things that you're gaining a full level of joy out of helping these ninth graders grow?
Well, first of all, there's no better compliment on earth than for another parent to say, my kid will play for you. That trust that comes with a price tag.
Mm-hmm.
And the one thing that I'm going to do is deliver, right? We're going to make sure that I'm going to do what I said I was going to do. I'm going to do my part. It's hard because as the kids are growing up, I tell the players all the time, as coaches, we don't make out the lineup card. We just write down the sum of your actions and your attitude. You figure it out. We're just writing down what you did, right? So it teaches them to take responsibility. But I always wanted to make it better. It was always like when you have a team of 12 or 15 kids, nobody's batting 1,000. And I think that's even Jesus picked a group and one of them was bad. I think that's the lesson there, right? So with these parents, it was just like, man, like that kid didn't have a great experience when they, but like I thought I would have never guessed that, So I was like, well, why? So I started to question things again, just question things. And then it dawned on us as a kid when my son started playing school ball. I look back and I was like, my wife and I were like, that was a great experience. And I asked her one day, I'm like, well, why was it great? And the reasons that it was great for her were totally different than the reasons it was great for me. And I was like, well, dang, that's valuable information to know on the front.
Yeah.
So, I asked the kid, all of Ethan's players, at the end of this season, you'll look back and say that was awesome or it sucked. What are you basing that? What's the merit of that? How are you basing that decision off that? Is it playing time? Is it your parents were happy? Is you got to hang out with your buddies? It was that you had a great season. Like, think about that. If your experience on my team is based on your performance, that makes it difficult to give you, because I'm not necessarily in control of that. You are. And I need to know that on the front end. And so just understanding how people decide, that was awesome. Because again, dude, my son's 15. He could only have 4 more years of baseball left in his entire life at a competitive level. So when you look back, this year's 25% of that. You don't want to wait. That's time that you can't waste. It's too precious because it's crazy to think that there are guys that get remembered forever that are on the Mount Rushmore of sports, and they did all that before their 40th birthday. It's a young man's game.
Yep.
And so, like, who was it that it was in the Super Bowl? They were talking about these guys, and they were like, "Yeah, that kid's 21 years old." I'm like, Ethan, that's only 6 years from now. That guy's only 6 years older than you, playing in the Super Bowl, right? Like, so, dude, you're not young. So, and I would rather raise tough men than raise tough boys than repaired men. Or than repair damaged men.
Yeah.
There you go. I'd rather raise tough boys than repair damaged men. And, with sports, if you understand what it is they're here for, and at the end of the day, every team in the NFL is full of good players. So how can one team go, lose or win one game? How could the Titans be so bad with all those good players? It's they all weren't going to the same place at the same time. The culture was bad.
Yeah.
Right. So when you just ask those questions, and then each player, God only made one of them, there's one thing that they alone can bring to the team. Does the coach know that? Do they know that? Has that been communicated? So that way, because I used to sit Virgil, and I'd be like, why did he put him in? I should have been the one he chose. Well, maybe he didn't know that was what I was the best at. Mm-hmm. Maybe I didn't tell him. Maybe I didn't show him. Because he's just making a decision on who he thinks is best. If he chose wrong, well, he obviously didn't have the right information.
Yeah.